Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Blue Velvet, and this movie is directed by David Lynch, and it came out in 1986, and I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It's been on my watch list for a while. I've always wanted to see it, and now I finally got around to it, and what this movie is basically about is a guy named Jeffrey, and he discovers something in an abandoned field. I'm not going to say what that is, and he brings it to the police, and they say a few things, and they tell him not to get involved because it's not really a good idea to do that, and unfortunately he chooses not to listen, and he decides to do some investigating of his own, and then he discovers some things along the way, and the story just continues from there, and it takes quite a few turns downwards, and it gets pretty dark, pretty crazy. And what this movie is, it's basically just a thriller, crime thriller, and there's a few other elements that are thrown in as well. There's a bit of a romance going on between him and the sheriff's daughter, and she's played by Laura Dern, who was great in the movie, and the acting in this movie is really great, and the characters are also very interesting. No one is written off as like really dull or boring, or you have some side characters who are like really annoying. Everyone feels very natural, and they all feel like real people, and not just cartoon characters. And this movie is also directed by David Lynch. I said that already, but I wanted to point that out because I've only seen two movies from him. I've seen Eraserhead and I've seen Dune. And there were points in this movie where it did kind of remind me of Eraserhead, and they were just creative choices that I feel as though were trying to add something else to the film, and sometimes it worked for me, other times it did not. It was kind of like, it works here, but it doesn't really work here. It kind of just goes a little too far, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to quite work for me. And what it's saying isn't really super complicated. It's very simple, which is something to like about it. But at the same time, I feel as though it could have been handled a little bit differently, and it would have benefited the movie just a little bit. And there were a couple of practical effects that didn't look all that great. Without spoiling the movie, it was just mostly a bird that didn't look very good. But the rest of the movie looks great, and I really love the music in the movie. I thought it was very well used, and I do love the directions the story goes, and it's always very interesting, and I love the way everything is presented. And one thing that really stood out to me as comparing this movie to Eraserhead in terms of like similarities, it was just one shot in particular. And there was a scene in this movie where Laura Dern, she catches the attention of our main character. It's the introduction to our character, and she just slowly walks out of the dark, and that reminded me of Eraserhead. And if you've seen Eraserhead, then you know what I'm talking about, possibly. But that did remind me of that film for like 1 second, and it wasn't distracting. It was just like, oh, this is a David Lynch movie, and he probably just likes doing that. Without spoiling anything, I thought the villain was great, and the main villain of the movie, he's kind of over the top and crazy, but he never comes across as unintentionally goofy, and he works very well for the story. And I thought when the movie showed off violence, it was convincing. When characters got hit, you felt as though they got hit for the most part, and they actually felt the impact that was being dealt to them for the most part. Not every instance in which this happens is true, but for the most part it does come across that way to me. And I mostly find these side characters the most interesting, and the main character, he's not super interesting. He's more or less the audience character, and you're just discovering things as he's going along. And there are points in the film where you're not really sure what to believe, and what I mean by that is you don't really get all the answers. There are some things that are left untouched, and you don't really get the 100% complete story. It doesn't make sure that you know every last detail. But I feel as though that adds to the film because you're only really getting one person's perspective, really, and there's only so much that this one person can know from this whole story that he's investigating, and he's not a cop, and he's not gonna like do anything like specific. He's not like trained to like explore every detail. He's just gonna find a few key things and like just move from there, and that's what I liked. And there are some comedic moments in this movie that I thought were very effective, and I thought they were funny. It's dark comedy, but it was still funny. And I really love the tone of the film, and it does manage to balance out a bunch of different tones without any of them overpowering each other and it feeling inconsistent. Like there's drama, there's like a mystery, thriller, crime film in it. There's a bit of romance, and there's also some comedy. Not a lot, but it's still in there, and none of these tones interrupt each other. They all flow very well, and I'm happy to say that this movie did a great job at doing that, because not every movie can do that. And that's about all I have to say about Blue Velvet. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great, and I would highly recommend that you check this movie out. I do like Eraserhead better than this movie, but I do need to see this movie for a second time, and I've seen Eraserhead like twice now, and this movie is definitely a lot better than Dune, David Lynch's Dune. So I'm glad to say that it's a great movie, way, way above Dune. That's what I'm trying to say, and it worked out in the end, so check this movie out once you get the chance. And with all that being said, I'm going to give Blue Velvet an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below what you thought of Blue Velvet, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for No Country for Old Men, so look forward to that. But until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.